Welcome to another episode of Geek Speak with Alan Daniel and Meredith Loughran. Today, we're talking about Steemit.
What is Steemit and what's going on with Steemit right now?
Well, I'm no expert except to say that I have been a member of Steemit as an early adopter. I should be reaching about 4 years on the platform. And I just reached and I just reached 70 reps. So I've been there for a while, but I haven't really been following all of the nuances as far as the ins and outs of the witnesses. But the big news, as I'm sure you're aware, is that Justin Sun with Tron has bought out Ned and Dan's shares of Steemit Inc.
So wait, the biggest, but even before that, you said you've been with Steemit for around 4 years now?
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
That's actually, that's quite a while. So that's around 2016. So what drew you to it, and why did you stick around? How did you find out about it, and why did you stick around?
Okay, so my Steemit story is basically that I've been a writer, and I've been hopping from platform to platform for a home for my work. And so I was on things like Hub Pages. I did Blab for a while. I did Bubloos and Sue and all of those different platforms. And, unfortunately, a lot of those platforms, they have their monetary payment through AdWords, and it's not really reliable, only because they're really based on the traffic that you generate and the amount of click-throughs. And so I never saw those as being very sustainable. So what I did was I started to take my content back and save it onto my own drives. And I've been looking for a platform that would stop erasing my content, because as a content creator, that's really frustrating. When I read the white paper about Steemit, I got really excited because I'd never heard of blockchain before then. I mean, I heard about Bitcoin, but not in a sense that it was blockchain. I heard of it as this funny internet money, and I kind of rejected that for a while. But when I read the white paper on Steemit, and it said that there was really no one area of failure. So like a centralized location, if you have servers that go down for any centralized system, the whole thing shuts down, right? But with Steemit and a blockchain, the decentralized aspect of it, you have a lot of computers who are putting in their power. So if one server goes down, it doesn't shut down the entire operation. And I found that really exciting. So as long as there's at least one server operating the blockchain, your content will exist. And then also as a creator, the implications of copyright, timestamping, and saving the original documents that you post on a blockchain will remain there. That was very exciting to me. The monetary aspect of it was exciting as well, because they have this 3-tier token system on the Steemit blockchain. So you have Steem Power, which is your stake. You have Steem, which is kind of the more volatile token that you can use on exchanges. And then you have SBD, Steam-backed dollars, which is supposed to be the more stable token, and originally was supposed to be pegged to $1 US. So one SBD was pegged to $1 US. Unfortunately, with the way the tokens are and the atmosphere in crypto, it's much less than that. But that's the 3-tier token system on Steemit.
Okay, great. So I'll get to the tiered token system, but first I want to understand what made you read the white paper in the first place, And then I want to talk about how you looked at it from an infrastructure standpoint, meaning you looked at it from servers going down and other aspects. So that's interesting, right? Like how many people in that time frame was really worried about infrastructure? But anyway, but going back to the first one, what made you? How did you even find out about the white paper? Like what?
A friend of mine had been on Steemit for a couple of months. So I think Steemit's about 5 years old now, maybe 5.5. I'm not sure. I have to look at the date for that. So she was there beforehand, and this was when everybody was making like crazy, stupid tokens, which could be exchanged for US dollars. And so people were making small fortunes there. And so I came in on the tail end of that. That's when it was all ending and the price of Steam dropped significantly. I missed it, so I didn't miss it, if you know what I mean. I wasn't making like crazy dollars, and then all of a sudden it just dropped out from me. So in a way, I kind of went in at a good time. But so my friend said, can you help me grow my Facebook group and get more people on Steemit? At that point, it was by kind of invitation only, and you had to wait about a week for your account to be approved. So, I was like, well, what is this Steemit thing? I was so frustrated at that point because a lot of the other places that I was writing had already shut down and people were losing money. And I saw the writing on the wall. It's not my first time seeing how monetized platforms shut down because they can't afford it. There was no sustainability in what they were doing. So I said, you know what, let me, before I put any more energy into another platform, I'm going to read about it. And the interesting thing was that they had something that I could read. Other platforms don't. So when I read it, I was just like, wow, okay, so it's got this built-in monetary system. I saw right away that just from my experience in community building online communities, that there was a lot of potential in building those relationships with people and building a community and helping to support one another. So if you are a content creator, this was a perfect place to go because it's almost like a busking community. Your upvotes equal Steam, which could then be converted into your USD or your pound sterling.
Okay, perfect. So that makes sense that you found out about it by somebody who told you to help you out, and then that made you more curious about reading the white paper and then
Yeah,
about how you
because
could help her out. That's
right, because
okay.
well,
All
that
right.
and part of that was
And
I wanted to do some digging because she was kind of in the same boat as I was. We were kind of looking for a platform to land and put our stuff on, and if it didn't seem like it was on the up and up, and if it didn't seem like they were going to have any kind of sustainable formation in this platform, then I was actually going to warn her to stay off of it.
right, okay, that makes a lot of sense because I was wondering why you specifically talked about the infrastructure standpoint. Now it makes sense because there has been like what five, maybe like 20, maybe 30 iterations of different platforms trying to create spaces where you could create content and then get paid for it.
Yeah.
But they all like I think I ran into some like a long time ago, but they all ran into problems in regard to how to monetize it where it made sense for the user or other aspects, and they closed down. But the other interesting point is, yeah, you're right. So Steemit was launched in March 24th, 2016. So that's about
Mm-hmm.
3 years ago. And I wanted to talk more about the multi-tiered, what do you call, a token system, because that can get really confusing if you're not if you're a new user or you're trying to understand how the system works. Like you just told me three major ways that Steemit has different tokens, and at first I was like, oh well, we definitely have to talk more about this because that's how many people actually have like several tokens per their platform? Only a couple, right? So
Yeah, there
yeah,
are only a
talk
couple that I'm aware of, but
yes,
yeah.
talk more about how that works.
Okay, so Steam Power is your stake. That is
Okay.
so when you create content, you can have the option of setting your rewards to 100% stake or 50-50. And, so 50% would go towards your stake and the other 50% would go towards either being liquid Steam or SBD, depending on the blockchain and the health of the tokens. Okay, so
Well,
I
why?
don't know how that part is split, but
Okay,
mhm.
why do you care about a stake? Like, why does me as the content creator, why would I care about the stake? Like, what am I staking? Like, what is the point of the stake?
Well, the stake, I mean, for me, I think a lot of it is part vanity, but another part is it depends on how philanthropic you want to be. Okay.
Uh-huh.
Because the larger your stake, the larger the reward is when you tip somebody. So when you like a post on somebody's content, you have the option of giving it 100% upvote or whatever percentage in between. And let's just say if you have, a shit ton of stake and your 100% reward is 10 Steam. Well, when Steam was worth $1, that's $10. Your reward was worth $10. Now I think it's worth, I don't know, 8 cents on the dollar, 12 cents on the dollar, depending on the market right
The
now.
price of Steam, right,
Right.
right.
So your stake determines how powerful your vote is as far as witnesses. It also determines how much your votes are worth as far as rewarding people.
Oh, okay. So if you liked somebody else's content and if you had X amount of stake in the system, then you'd be and then if
It's
you voted,
it's worth
then
X
that
amount.
counts.
Mm-hmm.
Right. The more stake you have, the more your value, the more your
Yes.
power, or whatever. The more you can like what do you call steer the direction of the not steer the direction, but you can go ahead and actually give more votes. Like your vote matters more the more stake you have.
Right. And it also empowers your account to be a more powerful voice when it comes to voting for your
Oh,
witnesses.
gotcha. Okay. All right. And then, so you said there's three tier, right? So the one is
Yep.
a stake, and then but that's tied toward what token again?
That's Steam Power. So that's not actually a token.
Oh, okay. So all right. So okay. Yeah. So we just talked about Steam Power, and then there's two
Yep.
more, right? There's
Yeah. So then you have Steam,
uh-huh.
and that's the more volatile token. And that's the one you'll actually see Steam and SBD both on the exchanges. But Steam is the more volatile one. That's the one that's kind of determined by the market.
By the cryptocurrency markets, like you and me can, depending on how me and you traded, buy and sell. That's what determines
Yeah.
the
But
Steam.
SBD
Yeah.
is also available. It's supposed to be the more stable token. It was originally supposed to be pegged to the dollar.
Okay.
So, and I don't really know. I mean, I have to look back into the white paper. It's been a couple of years since I've read it, but the purpose of that was to basically have two tokens. One was just to be a stable token, where people can use that. And let's just say if you wanted to buy bread and you're using
Okay.
SBD, if bread is $1.50, then you would know that your SBD, your Steam backed dollar, is worth $1. then you can use that as your more stable token. Whereas the where the Steem token is more volatile, so that's kind of like the one that people want to play the market with.
So let me ask you this: the Steem, I use my Steem, and then I'm able to use that to stake
Yes.
in the system, or okay,
Yeah.
and then I get Steem power. Like, what is the relationship between Steem to Steem power?
So your Steem is the liquid token, and that's
Right.
the one that you can power up and put back into stake. So you can power up and power down as much as you want to. Just understand that when you have stake in the Steemit system, it takes 13 weeks to fully power down your account. So, and as far as I know, there isn't any inflation built into that. So you can go, if you have 1,000 Steem power, it'll still take 13 weeks. So divide 13, and that's what you'll get in liquid Steem every week.
So what do you mean by powering up and powering down?
So the power up and power down, that's basically your liquid Steem being converted back and forth between your Steem power and your liquid Steem. So if you want to power up your account, let's say you're at the exchanges and you bought a whole shit ton of Steem and you want to power up your account because, there are a lot of people who reward their own posts. And why not? If you took the time to create your content, why not hit the like button and reward yourself? A lot of people do that. Some people frown on it. But so let's just say you take a bunch of Steem, liquid Steem off of the exchange and you send it into your Steemit account and you want to power up your account. Now you are a more powerful account. Your rewards are worth more. Your votes, your voting power is worth more. So, it could have effects on the witnesses that you vote for and how high they rank. And your witnesses are very important too, because they're the ones who will, by consensus model, they're the ones who will determine whether or not there will be changes to the blockchain. So they determine the hard forks and they determine what changes are going to be made on the back end or even the front end of Steemit.com.
Okay, perfect. So I was going to ask you, you keep on saying witnesses. Like, how does the witnesses system work and why do they matter? How does the witnesses system work for the content creator, for the guy, the person who's staking, and just in the general ecosystem? How do they matter to each person or each party involved in the system?
Right. Well, there are a lot of people who can probably speak a lot more intelligently about the witnesses. I'm a witness on the whale shares system, but I'm not a dev. I'm more of a community witness, so I do more of the front face stuff while some of the other witnesses are more on the development side, and maybe they might be on the build team, or maybe they're just there to support the blockchain. And what I mean by that is that they provide a server that runs the operations of the blockchain itself. So
the witnesses?
The witnesses are basically it's just another word for block producer. All right. So we're not like Jehovah's Witnesses. We're not out there, spreading the gospel of the blockchain. We're basically the ones who operate a server that is helping to keep the blockchain stable and operational. So that's why the top 20 are important. When you vote for your witnesses, you're voting for the people who are in touch with the community and have the best interest of the blockchain in mind. So by operating that, it's built into the blockchain contract how they are rewarded. So for every block that they find, depending on the speed of the block, they are awarded X amount of whatever token it is that they're the blockchain that they're supporting.
Oh, but as somebody who's just like a regular casual user, you don't have to worry about the witnesses
No, you don't have to
and
worry about
delegate.
anything at all. I would say if you were a good citizen of the blockchain platform, then I would say absolutely go in, research who your witnesses are, and support them, and vote for them accordingly. On Steemit and Whale Shares, we both have the top 20 witnesses, and they're the ones who need to come to consensus whenever changes need to be made to the blockchain. But
So
you can have hundreds of witnesses. I mean, the more witnesses that you have, that means more servers that are helping to keep the blockchain stable.
did you go ahead and participate in the witnesses system, like delegate your Steam to act this witness or that witness?
When on Steemit, I
Yeah.
basically use up my 30 votes. And I have, in the past year, I've powered down a lot of my Steam because I haven't been as active on the platform. But there are people who I've stayed in contact with over the last 4 years. And I support them and what they're doing because they are, many of them, community based, or they've actually done a lot of work as far as building apps that are built on top of the blockchain. So that's my way of supporting them.
They've created apps and stuff like that that have been built on top of the Steemit blockchain.
Oh yeah, yeah. There are like hundreds of them, I want to say, at this point.
Interesting, because I haven't really heard of anything besides the content creation. The main
Well,
one, Steam.
right. So you have steemit.com. That's the main site. All right. I call that the mothership because there are
Right,
so many apps that are out there right now that are built on
right.
top of it. So you have things like Apex, which is kind of comparable to your Instagram. Then you have ActiveFit, which you can link to your phone, but it's attached to your Steemit account. So you are earning their token as well as the Steam token, but it helps keep you on track with your fitness regimen, and they encourage you to move every day. They've had challenges like the push-up challenges, and it encourages you to walk and move, so to stay healthy. Then there are other platforms. I'm trying to think off the top of my head. There's PalNet. I'm not sure how active they are. They are a front end that's built that's built on top of the Steam blockchain. Yeah, I mean there are a lot of different apps if you actually look.
Okay, cool. Yeah, I've never. The only reason I'm clarifying is because I never really heard
Mhm.
about it. Okay, so then, so far we've talked about the three-tiered system. We've talked about the how Steam works. So here's a little history of Steam, right? Steam started out in July 4th, 2016, by Ned Scott and the blockchain developer Dan Larimer,
Mhm.
as they launched the social media platform. And then just 10 days later, they announced that their website was hacked, and they noted that 260 accounts were compromised, and about $85,000 worth of Steam dollars in Steam were reported to have been taken by the attackers. That's interesting, right? Okay, that was their first like big negative event just 10 days after they launched it.
Mhm.
Couple, and then like about a year later, and then things go smoothly, things is still progressing, people are attracted to the platform. And then in March 2017, Dan Larimer, one of the co-founders of the platform and the chief technology officer, leaves the company. This is right before. This is right before the big run-up of Bitcoin in July 2017. And then a year later, the Steam price drops during the 2018 cryptocurrency crash, and Steemit had to lay off 70% of its staff. 70% of its staff 2 years after opening. And now,
Mhm.
and then the next year, 2019, Steemit announces their structural leadership changes, and then and then what? Now it's 2020. Steemit has been purchased by Tron and
Yep, Justin
company,
Sun.
yeah, Justin Sun and the Tron company, and something. Some things have been happening around this time. But first, I want to go ahead and talk about how crazy that is. Over the course of 3 years, you have all these major events, right? Cryptocurrency crashes in 2018, and 70% of the staff gets laid off. There's trouble afoot starting off in 2018. In 2019, you have structural changes. And let me ask you this though: do you think that over the course of these couple of years that it's been alive, how has your reaction and your relationship with the platform progressed? Like you've just told us how you powered down your account significantly, and you're part of the community, but you've stepped away from it for the most part. Would you care to explain why and what's changed? Because you were
Well,
excited about the platform at first, but
yeah.
then
And I still, believe me when I say, I still love Steemit. Steemit's really the bridge that got me into cryptocurrency, and
right,
that was when a lot of people weren't talking about it or they couldn't explain it very well. So somebody like me who was, I call myself an analog kind of person. Okay, so and what I mean by that is, I don't understand the dev part. I don't understand some of these structures and things like that. So when I'm looking for a community, it's because I'm looking for the people. And what was attractive to me about Steemit was the fact that they had some great people on there who were interacting. I mean, it was a great community. And then things started changing where they would have delegated proof or delegated stake and stuff like that. And then all of these curation trails started. So you lost a lot of interaction because people, your everyday person who's like, well, I'm not really on Steam that much, so I'm gonna assign my Steam power to somebody else. And then they would have all these voting trails and, who's getting attention, who's not, who's flagging people, and you're using somebody else's power to do that, which I have always felt that community, if you want community, then it's because you are present and you're there. It's not because you're giving somebody else the power to do whatever the hell they want to because you're not there. If you're not there, let it be, right? But now you have people who take that and maybe they're doing good with it, but maybe they're doing bad. And so the interaction really dropped off. And that's kind of what got me away from Steemit, the platform.
so you're saying that there was that what you initially liked about the platform was that it had it checked off all the boxes for you from it's got reliability, stability in regard to infrastructure, and also it rewarded the user base, and of course number one, it had interaction, genuine community. That's what you liked about
Absolutely, yes.
it. But
And
then
that's what I
but
miss. That's what I miss about it is that the
but
community
then
aspect is gone.
Right then, but then due to we can say fundamental like flaws in incentives and how people start to abuse those flaws by using their power to delegate it to somebody else, then those people could go ahead and upload their own content and then earn steam because of that, and they could create sort of cartel. So like what you could do is you could go ahead and work with other people that have more steam and which means like more money, and then you could go ahead and delegate that to specific users and
Yeah, you can
right.
absolutely make yourself a very like a super account.
Yeah, so you can like manipulate the system that way. That was the issue, and that still is
Yes.
the issue to this very day.
Yes. I believe so.
Okay, so right. I mean, I think if like even I went ahead and tinkered around the system for a while, and I think that still is the case today because it's based on how much Steam power. I mean, Steam you have, and then if Steam it relates to your Steam power, well, you could go ahead and you know you could go ahead and collaborate with other people to push up your content via your amount of steam, right? So it's an
Yeah,
interesting
in fact,
situation.
I've got a friend of mine who was fairly new on Steam, Steemit, I should say, and she wanted to participate in one of the sub communities that they've started to develop there. And in order to do that, she needed to have like a minimum of 700 Steam power. So I actually delegated some of my Steam power to her. And I'm okay with that because I know her and I trust her and I know that she's not going to do anything bad with it. You
Right.
know, she wanted to just be involved more in the community, and I would absolutely support that. You know, for my own self, again, it's even though I love the community, I will never fully leave it. I don't think. In fact, I've been kind of cross posting my content from Whale Shares to Steemit to just because it's there and even if nobody's paying attention to it, it's just another place to put my content. It's another blockchain that my content is saved on. And if it earns something, great. That's a bonus. And if people actually swing by and comment, I do comment back. But I'm not going full bore diving into the community looking for other interaction, because that's really, when it comes to communities like this is how you grow. You go by, let's just say you put a post out there real quick. All right. I would say if you spent maybe 20% of the time creating stuff and 80% of the time going into the community and interacting with their posts, that's how you are going to quickly grow your account. It's those numbers that really matter in that sense, because as a new person, whether it's on Steemit or whether it's on DTube or Whale Shares, it doesn't matter. The interaction, you have to put the social back into social media, and that's essential.
Right.
It is a social platform, and people aren't going to recognize you unless you make yourself known. How do you do that? Well, there's so much content out there, and a lot of it ranges from really good stuff to really crappy stuff. How do you differentiate? By that person, that creator, going into the community and interacting with people that they can build relationships with, and then out of curiosity, they come back and they check out your content, and that's how you grow. It's a very organic way of growing, and it has. So if you know nothing about blockchain, if you know nothing about tokens or blockchain or any of that kind of structure, and you just want to be in a platform for the community and a place to drop your content, don't let the blockchain aspect of these platforms scare you off.
Yeah, what's great about Steam is that you don't really need to know anything about the blockchain. You don't need to know anything about too much about the tokens involved or anything like that. You can just log in and start
Yeah.
posting and
Start posting.
creating. There's like a simple account creation process.
Mhm.
Yeah, you don't need to know anything about that. But one thing I did want to quickly talk about is the fact that how you said that your friend needed like 400 or X amount of tokens
Yeah.
to participate in a group. So that shows you that there is like you can go ahead and have potentially high quality content creation and participation with this. Like setting, hey, you need to have X amount of tokens to participate. But the problem is that the flip side you're seeing that there's also manipulation with the way that the system is designed. So there's two good aspects. I mean, there's two sides. One aspect is that you could potentially create a higher barrier for higher quality content creation, or you could have it to where people don't necessarily have to have good content, but they can go ahead and work with each other to upload their content and earn by taking advantage of the system.
Sure.
That's where we're seeing the drawbacks, right? That's where you're seeing, like, you can judge the quality of Steam by what kind of content is present. Is it something that you want to come back to on a daily basis? If not, then there's a fundamental problem with the blogging platform, right?
Yeah, and you know what? This is my perspective, and it's not just limited to Steemit. It's anywhere that you create content. For me,
Okay.
because so the quality of content. Let's talk about that for a second. The quality of
Right.
content to me is so subjective that there is no set definition for it as far as content creation.
I mean, I'll say really quickly. I'll quickly interject to say the quality of content is just as simple as this. How frequently do you want to go back? Like, you go back to Twitter, you go back to like Reddit, or you go back to other platforms because there's usually engaging and interesting content that's posted. Not only the actual content, like the link or the title, but also the engagement with the comments and stuff like that. There's some sort of value that's continuously bringing you back. So that's the simplest way to judge the value of something like a Steemit or any social media platform or a blog, any sort of content. It's, do you go back regularly?
Right. So let's talk about, for example, Instagram. Instagram,
Okay.
you have a photo. All right.
Right.
You see it on your feed. You give it a quick heart, and you go on your way. Do you revisit it? Probably
Oh
not.
no, it's not.
Probably
It's
not.
not about.
It's a one-off. So
Yeah.
it's a micro blog, and it's just that immediate satisfaction of giving it a quick heart, or hey, I like it. Maybe you leave a comment. Maybe you don't. When you're on a platform much like Steemit or Whale Shares, you can post micro blogging content like that. You can post a photo and have nothing else, and that's okay. You are still a content creator. You're still micro blogging something. But for me as a content creator on a platform like Whale Shares or Steemit, I want more. So when I say the quality of your content, it's not what you're putting out there, but maybe how you format it. I want to see a good title. I want to see a good featured photo, and I have to see that there's some kind of text. And usually when you're going through the dog, this is why I usually have the back door closed so she can't go out there and bark at the neighbor. Okay,
But
so
I'll say something.
Yeah.
I'll say something though. I like this conversation is amazing so far. This is actually a pretty going into different aspects of content creation, blah 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 blah. There's a whole lot of things being covered here. I like it a lot.
Hold on a second. Okay, I'm back.
Okay, so like, look, I'm going through the and what I was talking about earlier was going back to the platform. So like, I'm going through Steemit right now, and I'm seeing a whole bunch of content around the Steam community. I'm seeing people talking about witnesses. I'm talking about us continuously about witnesses, Steamians, bearish time for Steam, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. Like, I'm not seeing, general topics that will engage. And I know this is a specific time, but in general, you'll see content around cryptocurrency or other aspects. I never felt that for me that the system would draw me back. I always saw other advantages to using the system, but from just like links and other aspects, but I never saw like it being inherently engaging. That was my problem. It still
Right.
is my problem with this.
So here's the thing with that, and this goes back to before my dog started barking. When it comes to the quality of content, what I look for is a good title, a good featured photo, and the first paragraph. There's got to be at least some kind of text. because without those three things, there is nothing that would differentiate somebody who just posts a photo and nothing else except for a title, because you need that. There's nothing else that would prompt me to engage with that. So I see it, I go, oh, that's a nice photo. Maybe I'll give it a vote. Maybe I'll just scroll by it. But I've already enjoyed it. That was my instant gratification. But because they didn't put any effort into it, why should I take the effort or the time to click it, see that there's no content, leave a comment, and reward it? There's no incentive for me as a content curator to do that. So I see it. So put in a little bit of effort when it comes to creating content for platforms like this, because unless they have an app like Apex, APPICS, okay, which is very much like an Instagram where you can post your title and your photo, and that's what people are there for. Okay, so that's an app that's built on top of the Steem blockchain, the Steemit blockchain, and it's for the sole purpose of sharing your images. Now, when it does that, it lands on what I called before Steemit.com, the mothership, because that's where everything lands. So all of these other apps that are using Steem blockchain, they have that layer on top of it. It still lands on your Steemit.com account. So if you are, like for me, I just go to Steemit.com. I don't use the other apps. I'm seeing all of this material coming because it's the landing spot. Whereas if I use the apps, I'm only seeing that content. So it can be. Now, what you were saying before is that you don't see content that you would revisit. And maybe, people use it for different reasons. For me, there's a huge food community and they share their recipes. Well, I bookmark those. There's a writing community. So if they have writing challenges, I want to participate in those. So I do revisit and try and interact with those posts and other people who are in the same genre as I am. So, if you're going
Steemit?
Yeah, so if you're going to Steemit.com,
look
at the different tags. So if you go Steemit.com/created/ and pick a tag, whatever tag is of interest to you, that is where you're going to see that list of content that you might actually revisit. But if you're going through the feed, if you're going to see
trending, right? Gotcha.
Oh, it's so much junk. You have to whittle it down, and you have to go through the tags or create a tag that people will migrate to, and that's where you're going to find content that interests you. Otherwise, it's a catch-all for everything.
Also, quick update too. Like this deviation, but I'm scrolling through the trending on Steemit right now, and it's showing that 1, 2, 3, 4. About 4 Steemit engineers have resigned from the company.
Yeah. I would be aware of the trending also, because you can throw Steem at it and it's basically a sponsored post. So the more Steem you get thrown at it, the higher it goes on the list. So I personally never look at the trending tab at all. I never do. I go straight to the tabs of topics that interest me.
No, but the reason that I brought this up is because this is going to lead into our next aspect of what is happening with Steem right now. Like if you're seeing 1, 2, 3, 4 people resigning, that means that there's something huge going on, and that's what we'll go into right now with the Justin Sun and the Tron acquisition of Steem. So you want to talk more about that and what the different controversy is around this situation right now?
Well, I can only really express what I've read online, and I see both sides of the coin. The community, the existing witnesses, from what I understand, did a soft fork and kind of locked Justin Sun out of his account. This is what I'm hearing.
That's funny.
Okay, so by doing that, Well, he says, well, this can't happen. So if you look at the top 20 witnesses now, those are all large exchanges. So supposedly these
Oh wow.
centralized exchanges basically took their Steam, powered up their account, and started a server and took over as the top 20 witnesses. So now they,
Right.
as a centralized organization that has already reached consensus that they were going to do this in the first place, okay, they took over the top 20 witnesses. So now they can make changes to the blockchain and nobody in the community can say boo about it. And the community in itself, the active ones, don't have enough power to unvote them and get them the hell out.
Right.
So now everybody's screaming, oh, this is centralized now. They've ruined the Steemit blockchain. Well, no, the Steemit blockchain is still there. If you are a content creator, how does this affect you? Well, right now, until the pissing and moaning stops, you can't export your Steam into another exchange. And people are accusing the exchanges of saying, well, you took your consumers' liquid Steam, powered up this account. Guess what? Haha, you can't power down for 13 weeks now. So if people want to sell their Steam or transfer it out of the exchange into another wallet, they can't because there's no liquid Steam. It's all been powered up.
Right.
So this has really made a lot of people angry, saying, well, and this is my argument, how I don't really believe that there is such thing as decentralization, because the potential to do something like this has always been there. Does that make sense?
Right. No, yeah, it does make sense. I'm thinking, I'm looking at other news regard to it, and you're right. People like Binance, Huobi, Poloniex, and I think other exchanges were also involved in the coup. And
Yeah.
the thing is, like, you know how yeah, these other like you had this controversy with Binance trying to do a rollback of the BTC blockchain, I think, last year. So the thing is, if you're continuously pushing forth this narrative of decentralization and the power of the blockchain, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera, and you have this type of hostile takeovers, like activities like this, it's not good for your brand as the exchange that's being involved, like Binance,
Yeah.
or even as the company that took over, like Tron, taking over a decentralized network that is Steam, but really they're taking over Steam, the entity, and then figuring out how to go ahead and structure control. So this is it's very interesting because it's all about governance, resource coordination, and how to distribute power, which is the whole point of decentralization and the whole blockchain point. Why are you even doing it if this for? Except to figure out how to quickly draw a whole lot of resources and exit scam in some form or fashion, right? I mean, it's whining and moaning is more in regard to, wait, this was our ideals. Now you're just like, you're raining down all over it. If you don't have proper decentralization, then what's the value?
Right. Well, this is what I was saying, is that as a content creator, all of this stuff doesn't bother me. And I might be
Of
crucified.
course.
I might be crucified for saying that by all parties, and it doesn't really matter to me. It really doesn't, because quite honestly, if I were going to be the pure content creator and I just want my stuff on the blockchain and I want people and I'm interacting with my community that I've built relationships with, then the underlying stuff isn't really going to matter. But that also speaks to my motivation with the tokens. Yes, I can say that my Steem that I've built and accumulated has taken me out of some financial jams. I will admit that. With the token at the current price on the markets, I just kind of think of it as monopoly money. So I'll give it away. I'll spend it. I'll power down. I'll power up. It doesn't really matter. My zero point zero 0.01 Steem vote. I mean, what does that mean to anybody except acknowledgement that I liked your post. I gave it 100%. So my 1 cent vote. There you go. It's acknowledgement. So it, like I said, people who are coming into this space, it depends on your motivation. Now, maybe your earnings aren't going to be that great, but you're going to make a hell of a lot more than nothing by posting on Facebook and Twitter. You are earning something and you're building another community. A lot of people don't like doing that because they're starting from zero. They're starting with no following. They're starting with no any kind of influence at all, unless they're bringing in a large audience with them. You know what I mean? Nobody cares how electricity gets from the dam through the wires to your house. They only care that you flip the switch and the lights come on. Okay.
Right.
So it's the same thing with platforms like this. If you're a true content creator and you don't really understand the blockchain, you don't have to. You don't have to know all that stuff. You just have to know that you can flip the switch and your lights come on. And that's how I feel about it. So all of this stuff right now is very controversial, but it kind of goes, it tells me again that it just reaffirms the fact that there is really no such thing as decentralization. The decentralized aspect of this, and this is the lesson that I think we can take away from anything, is that because you have multiple servers that are keeping your blockchain stable, that is the only decentralized part. When it comes to governance, it's going to be like any kind of election. You're going to get your pals to vote the way you want because you see it this way, and you're going to have opposing factions who think of it another way, and whoever gets the most votes wins. That's not decentralization. Okay, so let's just, from my perspective, Steem, Whale Shares, Publish OX, Tribe, any of those things that have a blockchain, it doesn't mean that they're decentralized. It means that their servers are. That means that there's not one area of failure that'll break down the whole network. That's the only aspect of decentralization that you'll ever find in any of these platforms, and that's how I feel about it.
Right, that's interesting that you said that because, like regular entities like Snapchat or whoever other blogging platforms, if they wanted to be resilient, they would go ahead and have distributed servers, right? You wouldn't have it all on one server.
Yeah.
So it's like, then what's the difference between you and Steemit? Well, then really, a couple of surface level differences, but besides that,
well, I think there's also a misconception that that cryptocurrency is synonymous to blockchain, and it's not. Cryptocurrency is a layer on top of the blockchain.
Yeah.
All right. Yep. Cryptocurrency uses the blockchain as its ledger. That's its bookkeeper. But cryptocurrency is not, so a lot of people, I think they misunderstand that crypto and blockchain are one and the same. They're not.
So it's with how this specific context it matters or doesn't really matter to the content creator, because they can just keep on creating and whatnot. But why it matters from a larger standpoint is if you have these same sort of cartels forming in other aspects of the cryptocurrency ecosystem, well, that poses a problem, because cryptocurrency is fascinating. This cryptocurrency communities are fascinating because it's about the distribution of power, distribution of value, censorship, resistance. All these other larger principles that make it different from the traditional centralized systems.
Mhm.
And it's going to be interesting to see how these sort of issues might occur in other aspects. So that's something to watch out for. But I mean, besides that, I think that all these aspects were covered. One of the more newest stories is how Binance is reversing its vote. It participated in with other exchanges in helping with the takeover, but now the CEO of Binance is like, oh well, we regularly work with these platforms on upgrading and hard forks, so we thought it was similar to that. That's why we went ahead and voted in favor. It's like, you probably knew what was going on, right? You probably understood more as to what was going on, and you worked with other exchanges and Tron to take over. So the other thing that I wanted to ask you was, you see how these different people are resigning, like the developers are resigning, and now they said that the Steemit communications head is also resigned from the platform. You're seeing how. Do you think that Steemit, the writing platform, would be affected in other ways, or you see that it will continue to go as regular? Like, what do you think might happen after this takeover? Because you know how Steam is now also going to migrate over to the Tron network. That's part of the value that
Right, and
Tron gets.
I think that's been the big worry, was how our tokens are going to be affected. So,
Right.
having powered down as much as I have, my account is basically plankton. Okay, that's probably as low as you can go. That doesn't affect my reputation score.
Right.
So, I mean, that's completely different. But, if they find a way to bridge it over, or there's kind of a token swap or something like that to get onto the Tron blockchain, then essentially they are killing the Steam blockchain.
Oh, and would they also be okay? Gotcha. And then
So that's
right,
the big
okay.
question mark, is nobody knows if the Steemit blockchain will actually cease to exist, because they're migrating over to the Tron blockchain. If that's the case, now they're supposed to have some kind of a meeting with the Steam people and the Tron people, and work out however this is supposed to work out. But it's not the first time that a platform has migrated to a different blockchain. For example, Steam Monsters started on Steam. They changed their name to Splinterlands, and now I believe they're on the Wix, Wax.
Wax.
Oh, yep.
Right.
So now they're on Wax. So again, it's a program or an app or a front end that sits on top of a blockchain, and it can migrate to another blockchain. How that affects the tokens that came with it is really up to whether or not they want to be a jerk about it. So if you earned so much when it existed on a certain blockchain, and you don't have a bridge to get over to the next one, that's kind of a shitty thing to do, because now what you've done is you've basically rejected all of your early adopters for your app or your front end. So I think that I'm hoping that Justin Sun isn't a complete idiot. I don't think that he is. He didn't get to where he is by being an idiot. I think that he's going to have some kind of a bridge to see how this moves over. Again, he took over Steam Inc. He didn't necessarily take over the blockchain until we had this coup.
Issue. Right.
until we had this coup. Now, why was that? Why did that happen? Because the other witnesses in the community tried to do a soft fork and pushed him out of it. So
Right.
we have actions from both sides that are very negative, and with very little communication. And now it's a shit show. Does it affect what I do? No. Do I care? I'm not going to lose any sleep over it. But it was a shitty thing to do on both sides. So now everybody's in an uproar. Everybody's upset. People are quitting. Some people are going to be looking for other platforms to put their content on. And I'm like, hey, come to Whale Shares.
Right. Right. Yeah, there's other platforms.
I'm still going to cross post until I know one way or another Steemit's going to shut down. Having said that, it is a blockchain. They do have the block explorer, so I can always retrieve my original content. So I'm not that worried.
Yeah, and it looks like they're going to. Oh, never mind.
But now
looks like.
But you have people who've invested a lot of money.
Yeah.
And they're
Yeah.
the ones who are upset. Well, you know what? I'm not part of that 1%. So
Right.
you make your bed, you lie in it, you figure it out, put your big boy pants on and figure it out. For people like you and me, it doesn't really matter.
Yeah, so I think I was thinking about it. I think that pretty much covers that's pretty much all you need to know about Steam and up until today.
Yeah.
I think this conversation covers everything from the beginning of Steam to where we're at in 2020. So that kind of wraps up this conversation, this
Cool.
show. Yeah.
All right. Well, if you guys tuned in for an hour, congratulations.
Right. Yeah.